Justice with Judge Mablean will be life, because in everything we do, it involves the law. You came to court to testify about what you heard, what you saw, and what you know.
She's fair.
I don't have a hearing problem. This ear works good. This one works even better.
She's firm.
I'm not responsible for that ticket, and I'm not going to pay for it.
Who says you're not going to pay for it? I make that decision, not you.
She's honest.
What you have to say?
All I have to
Nothing.
say.
This is Justice with Judge Mablean. Whitney Barber is suing Alex Sanders in the amount of $2,550. Ms. Barber claims Mr. Sanders advertised his property as a trendy, up-and-coming apartment building, but it was nothing like what he advertised. Mr. Sanders claims he was upfront about the area and feels the plaintiff wrongfully broke her lease. He's countersuing for the remainder of the rent.
In the matter of Whitney Barber versus Alex Sanders, you're suing, basically your allegation is that he misrepresented the neighborhood to you to induce you to rent the apartment. And now you want him to pay you the balance of your rent or the lease money, refund what you already paid.
Yes.
And Mr. Sanders, you're alleging that no, I did not, and that's not my obligation, and I want her to pay the remainder owing on the lease.
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right, so now you tell me what happened.
Well, I'm a student at a dance conservatory in Berkeley, and not being from the area originally, I was trying to look for an apartment around the school where I could live while I went to class, but the Berkeley area was too expensive for me, so I expanded my search to Oakland, and through online research, I found this apartment advertised by Mr. Sanders, and he said it was in an up-and-coming, trendy neighborhood, safe area, he said. He said it was a safe area, and it being within my budget, I messaged him and we went back and forth. He assured me that it was perfectly safe, so I agreed to live there. I went up before the first day of school to sign my lease, and that was the first time I had seen the apartment. It did not look anything like what the pictures he had sent me were. It looked much better in the pictures, but getting to the apartment, it was obviously not the newest building. It was about 30 years old.
And did you pay him some money before you saw the apartment?
Yes.
How did you pay the money?
Via check.
And the only thing you'd seen concerning the apartment was pictures that he sent you via email or that was on an ad?
Yes.
And where was this ad?
This was online, on an apartment hunting website.
Okay. So it was a good deal.
Yes.
What was a good deal?
It was $850 a month, which was well within my budget, and it was just an easy bus ride to my school. So I thought, okay, I got there, saw the apartment. It wasn't what I had been expecting from the photos. It was much dingier. I could see signs of water damage on my ceiling, but I thought, no, this is fine. I can live with this for $850 a month. This is well within my budget, and I can do this. However, shortly after moving in, I began to have safety concerns, especially, he told me that the area was safe, but I began to be harassed within my first month. Men tried to grab me. I think they were homeless men. People would leer, and it just didn't make me feel safe. I felt as though I could be actually attacked. And within the second month of living there, there was a domestic dispute in my building. My next-door neighbors were yelling, throwing things. It was an argument about a dishwasher, but they were so violent that I worried that I myself could be in danger. And I tried to call Mr. Sanders and let him know that this was happening so that he could stop it, but I had to leave a message as he wasn't there, and then I eventually called the police, and he showed up about 30 minutes after the police did to stop this dispute. The safety of the building was advertised as having a lock and a buzzer to get into the building as a whole, but the lock on the outer gate was broken, and I asked Mr. Sanders if he could fix it. He said he would, but it was about a month before the lock was fixed, during which time there was an armed robbery that took place in my hallway.
So there's a lock on the gate that
Yes.
you enter, and then there's a buzzer to enter into the actual building.
There is.
The gate gets you into the complex.
Yes.
And then there's a buzzer that gets you into the building
Yes.
itself.
But the armed robber got past the buzzer somehow.
I've been there 10 years as landlord. I added the lock, the gate myself, out of my own pocket 5 years ago, as a secondary security for the building.
Okay, but it was broken. You said it took a month and a half to repair.
A month, yes.
A month to repair. All right, and in between that time is when this robbery took place.
Yes, right outside my door.
Did you copy the advertisement that you saw?
I did.
Let me see it, please. And what were you saying, Mr. Sanders?
I'm saying, Your Honor, that the gate was there. It was advertised. The building actually as advertised with the lock intact. There was an attempted break-in. There was no one broke into the actual complex itself, into the unit itself. Other than the damage to the gate, which was pried open, as you probably see at the image there. There was no other damage. The neighborhood is up and coming.
What does that mean, up and coming?
Like most.
I don't know what up and coming means.
Coming up on Justice with Judge Mablean.
You didn't give him notice
She's already
before?
out of there.
I did. I
How
had my
much notice
things
did you
packed
give
and I
him?
was about to walk out the door, and that's when I called him.
And later,
If you've got $5,000 worth of ties, like
Okay.
I would do something to protect those.
It's self-launched though. You're just bumbling around,
Right,
making
so you didn't-
fires
you
all the
didn't-
time.
Justice with Judge Mablean. If you'll be in the Los Angeles area and want to bring your case to court, call 1-888-552-6878. You're watching Justice with Judge Mablean. We're back with the case of Whitney Barber, who is suing Alex Sanders for fraud.
Your witness, let me hear from you.
Hello, Your Honor.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm well. Well, how you doing?
I'm good, and you look very fine today. I want to let you know that.
Thank you very much. Now what you have to say?
All right. I've been living in the complex for just over 6 months now, and it's really not conducive living environment.
So why you live there?
Well, it's only what I can afford at this time. I am an ex-felon, and it's hard for me to get a job at this time. So what I do is, I'm very thankful for what Mr. Saunders has done for me as far as giving me the chance.
So
But-
it's not the area that you would have to be your choice given your finances.
yes. If money
but
wasn't a
something
problem,
that
I would not
where
be
you're
living
living
there.
based upon your financial situation.
I'd be
right?
living somewhere else. As soon as possible, if I can get out there, I would be gone.
So it's
But-
not the most desirable community.
No, I mean, I've been jumped a block away from coming home and been robbed multiple times.
But it's
while
the
living
most
there.
affordable community.
Yes, for right now.
So is that Mr. Sanders' fault?
Not necessarily his fault, but as far as what's happening with the gate, getting into the place, it should be a little bit more.
He said that was the gate, not the buzzer.
Yes.
The
No.
buzzer, you can't get into the building
Well,
unless
the gate
somebody
was-
lets somebody in there.
Well, the gate was broke for almost a month. And if you ask me, that's a little long time to go ahead and have that there for your tenants that live in your apartment.
Okay, now
But you're saying that's up and
under
coming.
landlord-tenant rules, if something is broken that affects your habitability, you have the right to fix it yourself and to deduct it from the rent.
Correct.
None of us have the money for that, Your Honor.
Okay,
That's true.
all right. How long did you stay there?
I stayed there 3.5 months.
So you want him to pay you back the 3.5 months?
I do.
Why do you move if you went the first month when you felt it wasn't safe?
Because I was willing to give it the benefit of the doubt, and I thought that I could stick it out, but as it kept escalating...
But you got the use of the facility for 3.5 months, so why does he have to reimburse
I did, but it caused me considerable mental and physical distress.
Then you
I don't
needed to
feel that-
leave. You don't need to stay there 3.5 months. You say to him, I want to get out of my lease. What'd he say?
He said,
Or did you just move?
well, I tried to contact him. I called him on his cell phone.
And what did you say?
I said, I'm sorry, Mr. Sanders, but I cannot continue living in this environment.
Okay, so she left you a message that she was moving because of the unsafe environment. And
Yeah.
what's your response to that?
I have an open door policy. All of my tenants can contact me. I've addressed many
Okay,
of her
so she
concerns.
contacted you. You just said she left you a message. So she gave you notice,
And
right?
she was already gone, Your Honor.
Oh, it was after you had
yeah,
left.
she was already gone.
You didn't give him notice
She was
before?
already out of there.
I did. I
How
had my
much notice
things
did you
packed
give
and I
him?
was about to walk out the door, and that's when I called him.
Okay,
I
Miss
hadn't
Barber,
moved
Miss
yet.
Barber, that's not the way it's done, okay?
I was so panicked, I wasn't thinking straight.
I
I just couldn't
understand,
spend
and-
another day in that apartment.
Okay, I understand that. And you're a college student, you're a young lady, you got to handle business. This is not going to be the first time. You're going to live into other properties, so you have to understand the law. And sometimes we don't give you exceptions because you're panicked. What I tell people all the time, you got to always think with a clear head. You got to think with a clear head. And you have to think consequences. That's what I say in this book I wrote called Judge Mablean's Life Lessons, 52 Tools for Weekly Living. Think the consequences of your actions before you take action.
There's no
You
thinking
call your
clearly in
parents and
this
say,
apartment.
Dad, Mom, this is your first apartment, right?
Yes.
You call your parents and say, how do I handle this? This is what's happening. How do I handle this? How do I get out of this lease? What do I do, Dad? What do I do, Mom? Did you pick up? Did you do what you do again?
Yeah,
Go on that little computer and say, how do you break a lease? How do you break an apartment lease? How do you get out of it? Did you do any research?
I did.
And what did it say?
It said you could break your lease if the living conditions were uninhabitable.
And how did it tell you to do
I
it?
found them to be uninhabitable.
And how did it tell you to break it?
Call him and tell him.
It said you have to give notice.
I did.
And it said you have to give so many days notice.
Yes.
That's what the law says.
The law says.
You have to give a 30 days notice.
There wasn't time to get. I couldn't live
There
there
is
for 30
always
more
time
days.
to
Plus,
give
he's not
30
the
day
best
notice.
person getting contact
If I had
with you.
stayed there 30 more days,
Come
I
on
could
now,
have been
you
driving
guys know
myself.
where the man lives. How's he a hard person to get in contact with when you can drop a note in his mailbox, at his door?
That's
You
true,
know,
but
right
we
here
have
at the
situations
doors.
with the people in our-
Hush. I'm trying to teach you something. So if you run into this situation again, Miss Barber, you give notice, at least 30 days in writing. Your landlord, any landlord, should give you a statement in the lease or the written agreement how you give notice, an address where to send notice to him or her. All right? That should always be in the agreement.
Yes, sir.
And you simply follow that, put it in writing, put it in the mail. There's your notice. Keep a copy of the letter. So because of that, you did not do that. I'm going to charge you for that last 30 days.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And I'm not going to give you back the money, though, that you stayed for 3.5 months. So I deny your claim for the plaintiffs. I am also going to deny your claim for the balance of the money, except the last 30 days. Now, the rent is $850, so I will be judgment for the defendant for $850. That's the order of the court.
All rise.
Judge Mablean has ruled in favor of the defendant. The plaintiff has been ordered to pay $850.
Mr. Sanders, you did misrepresent the safety of the apartment building and of the surrounding area, but I should have given you my 30 days notice before just taking off like that.
Well, I hope you learn your lesson.
Coming up,
If you've got $5,000 worth of ties, like
Okay.
I would do something to protect those.
It's
Some
self-launched though. You're just bumbling around,
Right,
making
so you didn't-
fires
you
all
didn't-
the time.
Justice with Judge Mablean. You're watching Justice with Judge Mablean. Miles Cantu is suing Skylar Thomas in the amount of $5,000. Mr. Cantu claims Mr. Thomas caused a fire that led to water damage, resulting in his silk ties being destroyed. Mr. Thomas claims that the fire was not intentional, and he feels the plaintiff should have had renter's insurance to cover the cost of his things.
In the matter of Miles Cantu versus Skylar Thomas, Mr. Cantu, you're suing him for $5,000 for damages done to your silk tie inventory as a result of a fire in his place. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so tell me about it.
So I was getting in one night late, and the fire department was at my apartment complex, and they were exiting his apartment.
Okay.
And as I entered in my building, it smelled awful, just obviously like a fire. And I walk into my workspace, and there's water damage all in my room, and it went all over my entire silk tie collection that I was about to launch for spring.
So you are a fashion designer?
That's correct.
And how many ties are we talking about?
100.
And the damage you say is worth $5,000. That's including
That's correct.
the labor and all that you had to do to get these ties together.
Yes.
All right. So how did the fire happen, Mr. Tomas? Or was there a fire by you? Tell me.
So I'm pretty new to LA. Only been out here for a few months. Met a lovely little lady. Figured I'd try to impress her. Cook a home cooked meal. She's a chef in the area, so I figured why not?
A chef. How you gonna try to impress a chef if you don't know how to cook?
It's the effort that counts.
Oh.
Being from Texas, I figured I'd do a chicken fried steak. It seemed easy enough. Just pan sear it and then stick the pan in the oven. Didn't seem too crazy. Unfortunately,
What happened
the steak
then?
didn't turn out the way I planned it to.
Oh.
So I put it in the stove, like the recipe said. Mm-hmm. Set the
In
timer.
the oven.
Yes, ma'am. It said for 20 minutes. So I set a timer, and I thought I set the auto shut-off on there. I'm used to a stove that will shut off itself. This one seemed sophisticated enough. It had the digital readout, so set the timer, figured it all shut off in 20 minutes, like the recipe said. Again, being in LA, I don't know much about parking and whatnot, so it was a street cleaning day. Either that or I needed a permit. I had to move my car for some reason. I left it in there. I left the steak in the stove, and went to move my car. It should have taken 5-10 minutes, but being in LA, it took me 45 minutes to find a new spot.
45 minutes to find a park.
Yes, ma'am.
And
And
you
I ran into the girl I was having over while I was looking for a spot. So she'd parked, and I said, hey, just hop in while I find a spot real quick, and we'll go back up to the apartment.
Wow.
I've got food cooking, and it's going to be great. So, you know, I pick her up, find a spot. We're walking back up to my apartment, and firefighters are there. Joy.
Wow.
Coming up,
See, but my renter's insurance covered the majority of the damages because we're required on our lease agreement.
You are?
We are required to have renter's insurance.
Let me see that.
you're watching Justice with Judge Mablean. We're back with the case of Miles Cantu, who is suing Skylar Thomas for property damage.
You live underneath him.
Yeah.
See, but my renter's insurance covered the majority of the damages because we're required on our lease agreement.
You are?
We are required to have renter's insurance.
Let me see that.
Right here. I've also got a picture of the fire.
The landlord requires everybody to carry renter's insurance?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, that's interesting. Landlord said, all this is not going to be on me. But it says to have coverage for your personal property in the event of theft or damage. Okay. Yeah. Did you have renter's insurance?
No. It was
But this is
lapsed.
as between you and the landlord. This agreement is between you and the landlord. It's not between you and another tenant.
Right, but what?
So, but you're not entitled to stick by this. This protects the landlord against you if your personal property is destroyed, and him, since his personal property was destroyed, he can't sue the landlord because he didn't have renter's insurance. This is a contract between you and the landlord to protect the landlord's interests. The landlord is simply saying to you, we won't be responsible for it, and he or she is saying that to all of you who are renting from them. But it has nothing to do between the agreement between the two of you.
But you know, he's got a tie collection. He's got a business. He should have his business insured at least. You know.
Well,
if
yeah,
it's
he
It's
should.
like a business. It's
well,
like
no,
a
for
business.
if you've got $5,000 worth of ties, like
Okay.
I would do something to protect those.
It's
Some
self-launched though. You're just bumbling around, you know,
Right,
making
so you didn't-
fires
you
all the
didn't-
time. Like it's
if
that's
you're starting your own
problem. It's
company,
your
then
fault.
you need to do the business plan. You need to have everything set so
You
to
don't need-
protect
you
yourself.
You know
Tell
what?
me what-
Stop. Woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Judge Mablean's verdict when Justice with Judge Mablean returns. You're watching Justice with Judge Mablean.
It's your motion that caused all of the other chain reaction. So it follows you. But for, you are the causation in law. But for your act of negligence and leaving the stove on and being out of that apartment, there would not have been a fire. All of that comes back to you.
Yes, ma'am, but there's
Judgment
insurance.
for the plaintiff.
Judge Mablean has ruled in favor of the plaintiff. The defendant has been ordered to pay $5,000.
You ruined my tie collection, and now you have to pay.
This is the point of renter's insurance. If you would have been covered as you should have been, neither of us would be here right now.
This has been a production of